The entire room went silent, not the polite kind of silence that falls over a restaurant when someone drops a glass. This was different. This was the kind of silence that happens when something impossible becomes real. Maya Chen stood frozen in the middle of the Apex, Boston's most exclusive private dining club, her hand still gripping the empty champagne bottle she'd been about to clear. Her voice had just filled the marble hall with Mozart's Waitress in a way that made the crystal chandeliers seem to vibrate with something other than electricity. And Marcus Hale, the tech billionaire who'd thrown out the joke 30 seconds ago, "Sing this Mozart aria properly and I'll marry you," wasn't smiling anymore. His mouth was slightly open. His hand had stopped halfway to his wine glass. His fiancée, seated beside him, had gone pale. Because everyone in that room suddenly understood the same thing. This wasn't supposed to happen. The waitress wasn't supposed to actually know the aria. She wasn't supposed to sing it flawlessly, with a voice that belonged in concert halls, not carrying dirty plates. And Marcus Hale, a man who never said anything he didn't calculate first, had just made a promise in front of 40 witnesses. Maya's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She didn't know yet that this moment would destroy her life before it saved it. Maya had learned to make herself invisible. 3 years of working at the Apex had taught her that skill, how to move through rooms full of Boston's wealthiest without them really seeing her. She was 29, efficient and forgettable, exactly what a good server should be. She'd perfected the art of the neutral smile, the precise pour, the silent exit. Tonight was the Hale Foundation's annual donor gala. $200,000 worth of wine would be consumed. Speeches would be made about philanthropy, and Maya would earn $180 for 6 hours of work, plus tips if she was lucky. She wasn't thinking about luck when she approached table 7. Marcus Hale sat at the center, as men like him always do. At 34, he'd already sold 2 companies and now ran Hale Dynamics, an AI firm that had just been valued at $8 billion. He wore his wealth quietly, expensive but understated suit, watch that cost more than Maya's annual rent but didn't scream about it. Beside him sat Vanessa Whitmore, his fiancée. Former Miss Massachusetts, current board member of 3 charities, future Mrs. Hale. Her engagement ring caught the light with every gesture, a calculated weapon of elegance. "More champagne," Vanessa said without looking at Maya. Not rude, exactly, just absent. Like Maya was a mechanism, not a person. Maya poured, keeping her eyes down. "The Cristal," one of the men at the table was saying. "It's wasted on most people. They can't tell the difference between this and André." "Most people," Marcus said, his voice carrying that particular tone of educated amusement, "wouldn't know Mozart from Mendelssohn either." "Culture is dead," another man agreed. "My daughter goes to Berkeley, and she told me half her classmates have never been to the symphony." Vanessa laughed, the kind of laugh designed for social approval. "Darling, you can't expect everyone to have had our advantages. Not everyone grew up with opera in the living room." Maya's hand tightened imperceptibly on the bottle. She'd grown up in a 2-bedroom apartment in Dorchester with her mother, Hui Chen, who'd immigrated from Shanghai with nothing but a suitcase and a teaching degree that America didn't recognize. No opera in their living room. Just her mother's old CD player playing arias while she worked 3 cleaning jobs to keep them afloat. Her mother had saved for 5 years to pay for Maya's first voice lesson. "I'll bet," Marcus said, and there was something in his voice now, that particular cruelty of the bored wealthy. "I'll bet none of the staff here could name a single Mozart opera." The table laughed. Maya should have stayed silent. She'd perfected that skill too. But something had broken open inside her this week. Her mother's diagnosis, stage 3 lung cancer. The bills, $47 June for the first round of treatment alone. The insurance denial letter. still sitting on her kitchen table, 3 pages of bureaucratic reasons why her mother's life wasn't worth saving. She'd been holding it together through every shift, every smile, every invisible moment, until now. "The marriage of Figaro," Maya said quietly, her voice cutting through the laughter. "Don Giovanni, the magic flute, così fan tutte." The table went silent. Heads turned. Marcus looked up at her for the first time, really looked. She saw the surprise flicker across his face. Then something else, that competitive glint that men like him always had, the need to win, even at a game no one else was playing. "Well," he said, smiling now, "the help has opinions. La clemenza di Tito, Idomeneo, die Entführung aus dem Serail," Maya continued, her voice steady even as her pulse raced. "Should I continue?" Vanessa's expression had gone cold. "How charming. You've memorized some titles." "Actually," one of the older men at the table said, Dr. Richard Ashford, a retired conductor Maya recognized from Symphony Hall program notes, "those are excellent examples, not the obvious ones either." He studied Maya with sudden interest. "Do you study music?" "I used to," Maya said, and then, because the breaking had already started, "vocal performance, New England Conservatory, 3 years." "Used to?" Dr. Ashford leaned forward, genuinely curious now. Maya should have stopped, should have smiled, excused herself, disappeared back into invisibility. "Family circumstances," she said instead. The polite phrase for, "my mother got sick and someone had to work and dreams don't pay medical bills." Marcus was watching her now with that look she'd seen before, when someone became interesting to him, a problem to solve, a puzzle to crack. "Can you sing any of it?" he asked. "Marcus," Vanessa said quietly, a warning. But he ignored her, leaning back in his chair with that particular posture of power, the casual sprawl of someone who'd never been told no. "I'm genuinely curious. It's one thing to know titles, anyone can Google, but can you actually perform?" The table was watching, the nearby tables too. The entire room seemed to have tuned in to this moment, the way people do when they sense something about to tip over. Maya felt something rising in her chest. Anger, maybe, or grief, or the reckless abandon that comes when you've already lost everything that matters and have nothing left to protect. "What would you like to hear?" she asked. Marcus smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a man setting a trap, curious to see what would get caught. "Voi che sapete," he said, "from Figaro, Cherubino's aria." He paused, glancing at Vanessa, at the ring on her finger, at the table full of witnesses. "Sing it properly, and I mean properly, not some karaoke version, and—" He let the pause hang there, theatrical. "And I'll marry you instead." The table erupted in laughter. Vanessa's face went tight, but she joined in, because what else could she do? It was obviously a joke. A billionaire making a ridiculous bet with the help. Entertainment for dessert. Better than the creme brulee. Dr. Ashford wasn't laughing. He was watching Maya's face with the intensity of someone who recognized talent when he saw it. "That's not funny, Marcus," Vanessa said, but she was smiling, because it had to be funny. Had to be. Maya set down the champagne bottle very carefully on the white tablecloth. "You'll marry me," she repeated flatly, making sure she'd heard correctly. "If you can actually sing it, properly, right now." Marcus gestured to the room with a sweep of his hand. "We have witnesses. Dr. Ashford can judge whether it's actually good. If you can do what you claim, sing Mozart like someone who actually trained, then yes, I'll marry you. A bet's a bet." He was enjoying this, the absurdity, the impossibility, the theater of it all. Maya closed her eyes. In her mind she heard her mother's voice from 15 years ago, in their cramped apartment that always smelled like the Chinese herbs she boiled for tea, teaching her the Italian pronunciation, word by word. "Voi che sapete che cosa è amor." You who know what love is. She felt the weight of every dream she'd buried when she'd dropped out of conservatory to work double shifts. Saw the hospital bills stacked on her kitchen table like an impossible mountain. Remembered her mother's face when the insurance company said no the third time. She thought about the $127.43 in her checking account. She thought about dignity and whether she had any left to lose. When she opened her eyes, she wasn't looking at Marcus anymore. She was looking at the space just beyond him, the way her voice teacher had taught her. Find a point in the distance and sing to it. Sing past the audience, past the judgment, past everything. And she began. Voi che sapete che cosa è amor. The first note came out pure and clear, not tentative, not apologetic. It filled the space the way light fills a room when you open curtains in darkness. By the second phrase, the entire restaurant had gone quiet. Maya's voice had been trained at one of the best conservatories in the country before circumstance stole that future from her. 3 years of technique, of breath control, of learning how to turn air and intention into something that could move people to tears. She hadn't sung, really sung, not in the shower or humming while cleaning, in 4 years. But the body remembers. The diaphragm remembers how to support. The throat remembers how to open. The heart remembers what it feels like to pour itself into sound. The aria poured out of her. Mozart's meditation on the confusion of young love, sung by a character who doesn't understand their own heart. Every phrase shaped perfectly, every ornament placed with precision, every word alive with the meaning she'd studied so carefully years ago. Donne, vedete se io l'ho nel cor. Women, see if I have it in my heart. She sang it in Italian, the way it was meant to be sung. She sang it like someone who had lost everything and had nothing left to lose. She sang it like the trained soprano she'd once been and still was, underneath the server's uniform and the exhaustion and the 4 years of silence. When she finished, the silence was absolute. Someone in the kitchen had stopped mid-pour. A waiter stood frozen with a tray. The entire room, 40 of Boston's wealthiest donors, sat completely still. Maya opened her eyes. Marcus Hale was staring at her like he'd never seen her before, like she'd just materialized from thin air, fully formed, impossible. Dr. Ashford had tears on his cheeks. He wasn't even bothering to hide them. Vanessa's hand was gripping her napkin so hard her knuckles had gone white. Her face had gone through shock, through anger, and landed on something harder to read. And from somewhere in the back of the restaurant, someone started to clap. Then another person. Then the entire room was applauding, not the polite golf clap of society events, but real applause, shocked and genuine and hungry. Maya stood very still in the center of it all, her server's apron still tied around her waist, her hair in the neat bun required by the Apex's dress code, and felt reality crack open around her. Marcus pushed back his chair and stood. He walked to her, 3 steps that seemed to cross an impossible distance between their worlds. "What's your name?" he asked quietly, though he must have known. Every employee wore name tags. "Maya Chen. Maya Chen," he repeated, like he was testing the weight of it, like he was entering it into some mental database. Then he turned to the room full of witnesses, that competitive gleam back in his eyes, brighter now, almost manic. "You all heard me," he said, loud enough to carry. "A bet's a bet." Vanessa stood so abruptly, her chair nearly tipped. "Marcus, stop this. I made a promise," he said, and there was something reckless in it now, something Maya suddenly recognized as dangerous, in front of 40 people. She sang it perfectly. "Dr. Ashford, am I wrong?" The old conductor shook his head slowly, still wiping his eyes. "That was extraordinary. Conservatory level at minimum. That's a voice that should be on stage." "So," Marcus turned back to Maya, "shall we discuss terms?" Maya's heart was hammering so hard she felt dizzy. This wasn't real. Couldn't be real. Men like Marcus Hale didn't marry waitresses on bets. This was a joke that had gone too far, and he'd laugh any second now and she'd be fired and— "You're joking," Archie said. "I never joke about promises." He pulled out his phone. "I'm calling my lawyer. We'll need a prenup drawn up by morning." "Marcus!" Vanessa's voice had gone shrill, cracking through her careful composure. "This is insane. You're humiliating me. You're humiliating yourself. "I made a bet," he said again, and Maya suddenly understood. This wasn't about her at all. This was about his ego, his need to be seen as a man of his word, his billionaire's pride that wouldn't allow him to back down from a public promise, no matter how absurd. She'd heard the stories about him, the legendary stubbornness, the refusal to lose face, the time he'd bought an entire company just to prove a point in a board meeting. "Wait," Maya said. "Just wait. What are you actually proposing?" Marcus looked at her, and for the first time, something like actual interest flickered behind the competitive pride. "Exactly what I said. Marriage, legal, binding, 1 year minimum to avoid the obvious gold-digger accusations." He was thinking out loud now, calculating the way he must calculate business deals. "You'll sign a prenup, you'll live in my home, you'll attend required social functions as my wife. In exchange, you'll receive a settlement of, let's say, $5 million at the end of the year, assuming you fulfill the basic obligations." $5 million. Maya's mother's treatment would cost maybe $200,000 over the next year. Maybe $300 if it went badly. $5 million was impossible money, life-changing money. Money that meant her mother could get the best care, could stop working, could actually have a chance. "This is insane," Vanessa said, but her voice had gone quiet now, deadly. "You're really going to throw away everything we've built for a circus act?" "We built nothing," Marcus said, not looking at her. "Our parents arranged this marriage for tax benefits and social advantage. Don't pretend it was ever about love." The cruelty of it hung in the air. Vanessa's face went very still. Then she picked up her purse, a Birkin bag that cost more than Maya's car, and walked out without another word. Her heels clicked against marble like gunshots. Maya watched her go and felt the first stirring of what this would actually mean. The enemies she would make, the world she'd be entering. "I need to think," she said. "No." Marcus's voice was firm. "You need to decide right now, because the moment you walk away, this is over. I'll honor the bet for exactly as long as you're standing in front of me." "That's not fair. I'm offering you $5 million for 1 year of playing dress-up at charity events. Fair doesn't enter into it." He waited. "Your mother has stage 3 lung cancer. Mass General, right? Dr. Patricia Morrison." Maya went cold. "How do you— I looked you up while you were singing. Maya Chen, 29, New England Conservatory dropout. Mother Hui Chen, recently diagnosed. Insurance denied coverage for the recommended treatment protocol." He held up his phone. It took 30 seconds. The violation of it, the casual invasion of her privacy, the reminder that men like him could find out anything, access anything, buy anything, including people. "1 year," she said slowly, and then we divorce. Amicably. You get your settlement. I've fulfilled my promise and demonstrated that I'm a man of my word." He smiled. "Everyone wins, except Vanessa. Vanessa will survive. She'll probably marry a hedge fund manager and be happier for it." He extended his hand. "Do we have a deal?" Maya looked at his hand, looked at the room full of witnesses still watching, looked at Dr. Ashford, who was studying her with something like pity. She thought about her mother, who'd sacrificed everything so Maya could have voice lessons, who'd worked 3 jobs so Maya could attend conservatory, who was now dying in a hospital bed because America had decided her life wasn't worth the cost of medicine. She thought about the person she'd been before she learned to be invisible, before she learned that dreams were luxuries for people who could afford them. She thought, what do I have left to lose? One condition, Maya said. Marcus raised an eyebrow. You're negotiating? One condition, she repeated. My mother's treatment, full coverage, best available care. That's separate from the settlement, non-negotiable. For a moment, she thought he'd refuse, that she'd pushed too far. Then Marcus smiled, and this time it was genuine, surprised, like he'd just found something unexpected and interesting. Done, he said. They shook hands, and Maya Chen's old life ended in a room full of people who would never forget what they'd witnessed. The night a billionaire married a waitress because he couldn't stand to lose a bet. The lawyer's office smelled like leather and old money. Maya sat across from Jonathan Pierce, Marcus's personal attorney, reading through a prenuptial agreement that was 47 pages long. Marcus sat beside her, answering emails on his phone like this was just another business meeting. Page 15, Section 8, Jonathan said. His voice was carefully neutral. He'd clearly been through stranger situations. Behavioral expectations. You'll maintain a residence at Mr. Hale's primary home in Beacon Hill. You'll attend all required social functions. You'll conduct yourself in a manner befitting Mrs. Hale. No scandals, no tabloid incidents, no unauthorized media interviews. Maya's head was spinning. 2 hours ago she'd been serving champagne. Now she was reading about marital obligations and breach of contract and liquidated damages. Page 23, Jonathan continued. Financial terms. You'll receive a monthly stipend of $50, €1 for personal expenses. All medical expenses for you and your immediate family are covered separately as negotiated. At the conclusion of 1 year of marriage, assuming all contractual obligations are met, you'll receive a one-time payment of $5 million. $5 million for 1 year of her life. What if I want out before the year? Maya asked. Page 31, Section 14B, Jonathan said without missing a beat. Early termination by the wife results in forfeiture of the settlement. You'd receive a prorated amount, roughly $400 per month served. And if he wants out, same terms apply. He pays the full settlement regardless of duration. Jonathan looked at Marcus. Though I've advised against that clause. I don't back out of deals, Marcus said, not looking up from his phone. What about... Maya hesitated. What about the actual marriage, the physical? Page 18, Section 11, Jonathan said, and there might have been the faintest hint of discomfort in his voice now. This is a contractual arrangement, not a romantic partnership. There's no expectation of physical intimacy. Separate bedrooms will be maintained. This is explicitly defined as a marriage of convenience. Maya felt something loosen in her chest. At least there was that. You'll need to memorize the background we create, Marcus said, finally looking up. We met 6 months ago through Dr. Ashford. He's already agreed to corroborate. We fell in love. The bet tonight was just theater, a romantic gesture. Vanessa and I had already ended our engagement last week privately. That's the story. That's a lie. That's PR. Marcus's voice was matter-of-fact. The truth is that I made a promise and I'm keeping it. But the world doesn't need the truth. They need a narrative they can understand. What about what I need? What do you need? Marcus asked, and there was genuine curiosity there. Maya looked at the contract, at the number written there, at the clause about her mother's medical care. I need to call my mother, she said quietly. It's 3 a.m. I need to call my mother. Marcus gestured to the door. There's an empty office 2 doors down. Take your time. Maya stood on shaking legs and walked out into the hallway. The building was eerily quiet at this hour, just the hum of air conditioning and the distant sound of a cleaning crew somewhere on another floor. She found the empty office and closed the door, pulled out her phone, stared at it for a long moment. Then she called. Her mother answered on the second ring, voice thick with sleep and concern. Maya, what's wrong? "Mom," Maya said, and her voice cracked. "Mom, I need to tell you something." The house in Beacon Hill was a 4-story brownstone that looked like it had been lifted from a period drama about old money and quiet power. Inside, it was all original hardwood floors, crown molding, and art that made Maya afraid to breathe too hard near it. Her entire Dorchester apartment would have fit inside the master bathroom. "Your room is on the 3rd floor," Marcus had said when he'd shown her around on that first day. His own room was on the 2nd floor. The separation was deliberate, architectural, a physical manifestation of the contract. Maya had moved in with 2 suitcases and a box of her mother's things she couldn't bear to leave behind. The staff, there was staff. 3 people who came daily had looked at her belongings with carefully blank faces. Now, a week in, Maya was beginning to understand what she'd actually agreed to. The money for her mother's treatment had been transferred immediately. Hui Chen was now at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, receiving care that would have been impossible before. The relief of that was so huge, Maya sometimes couldn't breathe around it, but everything else was harder than she'd imagined. "You need a new wardrobe," Marcus had said on day 2. "Susan will help you." Susan turned out to be a personal stylist who arrived with fabric swatches and measuring tape and an expression that suggested she'd dressed more difficult clients. They'd spent 6 hours shopping on Newbury Street, stores Maya had never dared to enter, and emerged with enough clothing to fill the enormous walk-in closet in her room. Everything fit perfectly, everything looked expensive. Nothing felt like her. "We have the Greystone Foundation Gala on Friday," Marcus had informed her at breakfast on day 3. Breakfast was served by Maria, the housekeeper, in a dining room that could seat 12. Marcus read the Wall Street Journal. Maya tried not to feel like she was playing dress-up in someone else's life. "What's the Greystone Foundation?" she'd asked. Marcus had looked up, surprised. "Arts education for underprivileged youth. I'm on the board. You'll need to know the basic mission points." He'd slid a folder across the table. Inside, briefing documents about the foundation, photographs of key people she'd need to recognize, talking points she was supposed to memorize, like studying for a test on someone else's life. The Greystone Gala was at the Museum of Fine Arts in the courtyard, under a tent that probably cost more than Maya's entire year of conservatory tuition. Maya wore a navy gown that Susan had selected. Her hair was done by a stylist Marcus had sent to the house. She looked in the mirror and saw a stranger, polished, expensive, unrecognizable. "You look beautiful," Marcus said when she came downstairs. It was the first compliment he'd given her. It sounded like an assessment of a successful project. "I look like I'm wearing a costume," Maya said. "You'll get used to it." The car ride to the museum was silent, except for the sound of Marcus typing on his phone. Maya watched Boston slide by through tinted windows, her city suddenly foreign. At the museum, photographers were waiting. Actual photographers, with actual cameras and press badges. "Smile," Marcus murmured as they stepped out of the car. His hand settled on her lower back, proprietary. "We're in love, remember?" The story had been planted in the society pages. Marcus Hale and his new fiancée, Maya Chen, a former opera student he'd met through mutual friend Dr. Richard Ashford. A whirlwind romance, love at first sight. The bet at the Apex had been reframed as a romantic gesture, not a drunken joke. The internet had gone insane. "Who is Maya Chen?" one headline read. "From Waitress to Billionaire's Wife, a modern Cinderella story. Tech titan trades socialite for Songbird." Maya had stopped reading after the first day. The comments were worse than the articles. Inside the gala, people stared. Some approached with congratulations that felt like barely disguised curiosity. Some kept their distance, watching. Vanessa Whitmore was there. Of course she was. She was on the board too. She wore white, a deliberate choice. She looked stunning and cold and absolutely in control. When their eyes met across the room, Vanessa smiled, raised her champagne glass in a mock toast, and turned away. "She hates me," Maya said quietly. "She hates me," Marcus corrected. "You're just collateral damage." That's comforting. It's honest. Marcus guided her toward a group of people. "Come on, time to meet the board." The next 2 hours were a blur of names and faces and careful conversations. Maya smiled until her face hurt. She made small talk about foundations and fundraising. She pretended not to notice the way people's eyes lingered on her, calculating, judging. During dinner, she sat between Marcus and a woman named Catherine Brooks, who owned a chain of boutique hotels and had opinions about everything. "So you were at the New England Conservatory?" Catherine asked. "What made you leave?" The question was polite. The interest behind it was sharp. "Family obligations," Maya said, using the same phrase she'd used at the Apex. "How noble." Catherine sipped her wine. "And now you're marrying Marcus. How fortunate that your obligations aligned with such an advantageous solution." The implication was clear. Gold digger. Maya set down her fork very carefully. "My mother has cancer. Marcus is helping with her treatment. I'm grateful for that." "Of course." Catherine's smile didn't reach her eyes. "We're all very happy for you both." After dinner, there were speeches. Someone from the foundation talked about the importance of arts education. A student performed, a 15-year-old violinist who was so good Maya felt something twist in her chest. That could have been her, should have been her, if circumstances had been different, if her mother hadn't gotten sick, if America didn't treat healthcare like a privilege instead of a right. "You okay?" Marcus murmured. Maya realized she was crying. Just small tears, barely visible, but there. "I'm fine," she said. He handed her his handkerchief without comment. They got home after midnight. Maya's feet hurt from the heels. Her face hurt from smiling. Her heart hurt from reasons she couldn't quite name. She was heading upstairs when Marcus called out from the study. "Maya, come here for a minute." She found him at his desk, laptop open, still in his tuxedo but with the bow tie undone. He looked tired, the first time she'd seen him look anything other than completely controlled. "You did well tonight," he said. "I survived. Catherine Brooks was testing you. You handled it well." He closed the laptop. "This is going to keep happening. People are going to assume you're a gold digger. They're going to say it to your face, behind your back, online. You need to develop a thicker skin." "Or maybe," Maya said, "you could have thought about that before you made a bet that turned my life into tabloid fodder." Marcus looked up, surprised. It was the first time she'd pushed back. "Fair point," he said after a moment. "Is it?" Maya sat down in the chair across from him. "Because I'm starting to realize that you made this decision on a whim, and now I'm the one living with the consequences. You agreed to it. Because you offered me $5 million and my mother's life. That's not really a choice, Marcus. That's extortion dressed up as opportunity." "Extortion?" His voice went cold. "I'm giving you more money than you could earn in 10 years. "I know." Maya's voice was quiet but steady. "I know exactly what you're giving me, but you need to understand what you're taking. You took my privacy, my anonymity, my ability to just exist in the world without people staring and judging and assuming they know who I am." Silence. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, "You're right." Maya blinked. "What?" "You're right. I didn't think about the consequences for you. I thought about the challenge, the promise, the principle of it. I didn't think about what it would actually mean for you to step into this life." He ran a hand through his hair. "I'm not used to thinking about other people's perspectives." "I've noticed." A ghost of a smile. "My therapist says it's a problem. You have a therapist. Rich people problems require expensive solutions. He stood up, poured 2 glasses of whiskey from the decanter on the shelf, handed her one. Look, I can't undo what's already done, but I can try to make the next year less terrible. What do you need? Maya held the glass, feeling the weight of it. Crystal, probably worth more than her weekly paycheck at the Apex. I need to see my mother, she said. Every day. I need to be there for her treatments. Done. I'll have David arrange a car and driver. I need to be able to say no sometimes, to events, to appearances. I can't do this every night, Marcus considered. Twice a week maximum for required events. Everything else is optional. Fair. Maya nodded slowly. And I need... She hesitated. I need to keep singing. What's stopping you? I don't know where I'd even start anymore. I've been out of it for 4 years. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then, Dr. Ashford, from the dinner. He's connected to everyone in the classical music world. I could ask him about teachers, about performance opportunities. You'd do that. Why wouldn't I? Marcus shrugged. Part of this arrangement is that you attend social functions as my wife. You'll do that better if you don't feel like you're dying inside. If singing helps, then sing. It wasn't kindness, exactly. It was pragmatism, but it was something. Thank you, Maya said. They sat in silence for a while, drinking whiskey that tasted like smoke and honey. Can I ask you something? Maya said finally. Go ahead. Why did you really do this? And don't tell me it's about keeping promises. There's got to be more. Marcus swirled his glass, watching the liquid catch the light. When he spoke, his voice was different, less guarded. When I was 17, my father made me promise I'd take over Hale Industries. I didn't want to. I wanted to study philosophy, maybe teach, but he was dying, and he asked me to promise, and I did. He looked up. I kept that promise. I ran the company for 8 years until I could sell it without destroying everything he built, and I hated every single day of it. I'm sorry. Don't be. It made me rich enough to do whatever I want now. He finished his whiskey. But it taught me that promises matter, even stupid ones, even the ones you make for the wrong reasons. They matter because without them, we're just animals making sounds at each other. Maya thought about that, about the weight of promises, about the different kinds of obligation. The bet was stupid, Marcus continued. I know that, but I said it in front of 40 people. And either I'm the kind of person who keeps their word, or I'm not. And I decided I am, even if it costs you. I'm a billionaire. Nothing really costs me. He stood up. Except maybe my reputation for good judgment. That might take a hit. Your reputation, Maya said, is that you're brilliant and ruthless and slightly unhinged. This tracks. Marcus actually laughed. Fair assessment. He walked her to the stairs. The first few weeks will be the hardest, he said. Once people get bored of the story, it'll get easier. Promise? Maya asked, and there was an edge of irony there. I don't make promises I can't keep, Marcus said seriously. Maya went upstairs to her borrowed room in her borrowed life and tried not to think about how she could already feel herself changing, adapting, becoming someone her mother was responding to treatment. Masha sat beside Hui Chen's hospital bed at Dana-Farber, holding her hand, watching the IV drip medication that was keeping her alive. You look different, her mother said in Mandarin. They always spoke Mandarin together, even though Hui's English was perfect. It was their private language. Their connection to a home Hui had left behind 40 years ago. I'm wearing expensive clothes, Maya replied, also in Mandarin. It's not the clothes. Hui studied her daughter's face. You're carrying yourself differently, like you're waiting for someone to take something away from you. Maya's throat tightened. Her mother had always been able to see through her. I don't know how to be this person, Maya admitted quietly. The wife of a billionaire, someone who goes to galas and has a stylist and is photographed everywhere. Then don't be that person, Hui said simply. Be Maya Chen, who happens to live in a big house. It's not that simple, Mom. It's exactly that simple. Hui squeezed her hand. You think I stopped being myself when I came to America, when I had to clean houses instead of teach? I was still Hui Chen, just in different circumstances. This is different. How? Maya didn't have an answer for that. Are you unhappy? Hui asked. I don't know, Maya said honestly. I'm not happy, but I'm not unhappy either. I'm just existing, going through the motions, playing a role. Is he kind to you, this Marcus? He's fair, businesslike. We're strangers living in the same house. That's most marriages, Hui said dryly. Despite everything, Maya laughed. A nurse came in to check vitals. Maya watched the familiar routine. Blood pressure, temperature, notes on a chart. All of this was possible because of the bet, because she'd sung an aria, because she'd said yes to a stranger's absurd proposal. The doctors say I'm responding well, Hui said after the nurse left. Dr. Morrison thinks I might be able to do the clinical trial after this round finishes. That's good. Maya's voice was thick. You saved my life, Hui said quietly. Whatever else this marriage is, you saved my life. I won't forget that. You'd do the same for me. I gave up everything for you once already, Hui said. My country, my career, my family. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. That's what love is. Maya thought about Marcus's transactional approach to everything, about contracts and obligations and settlements, about the absence of love in any part of their arrangement. I have to go, she said. There's a thing tonight at the Harvard Club. Another performance? Something like that. Hui reached up and touched Maya's face. Don't lose yourself in this, Baobei. Whatever you have to pretend to be in public, don't forget who you are when you're alone. Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. On the drive back to Beacon Hill, she thought about identity, about performance, about the difference between who you are and who the world needs you to be. The car pulled up to the brownstone. Maya got out, climbed the steps, used her key to unlock the door that still didn't feel like hers. Inside, Marcus was in the study with 3 other people, all looking serious, all in expensive suits. Maya, he said, looking up. Perfect timing. These are my lawyers. We need to discuss something. Her stomach dropped. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. He gestured to a chair. But Vanessa's parents are threatening to sue. Breach of promise, emotional distress, reputational damage, the usual. Can they do that? They can try, it'll get thrown out, but it'll be ugly. Marcus's voice was calm, analytical. The point is, we need to make our marriage look more convincing, more public, more real. One of the lawyers, a severe woman in her 50s, slid a folder across the desk. We're recommending a media strategy. Interviews, photo opportunities, social media presence. We need to sell the love story. Maya looked at the folder, looked at Marcus, looked at her future being planned by strangers in suits. No, she said. Everyone looked at her. No, Marcus repeated. I agreed to attend events, to play the role in public. But I'm not doing interviews. I'm not posting our lives on social media. I'm not... She stopped, searching for words. I'm not selling our fake love story for your legal defense. The severe lawyer frowned. Mrs. Hale, this is really in your best interest. Don't call me Mrs. Hale. Maya stood up. I'm sorry about Vanessa's parents, but the answer is no. She walked out before anyone could respond. Upstairs, in her room, she locked the door and tried to remember what her mother had said. Don't lose yourself. Too late, she thought. She'd already lost herself the moment she'd agreed to this. Hadn't she? Maya was awake. She was often awake these days, staring at the ceiling of her 2-big bedroom, listening to the sounds of a house that wasn't hers. The text was from an unknown number. You're not fooling anyone. We know what you really are. It was the 17th message like that this week. Some came on social media, accounts she'd been forced to create for authenticity. Some came via email. Some were texts to her personal number, which meant someone had leaked it. The nicer ones called her a gold digger. The worse ones used words that made her feel sick. She'd shown the first few to Marcus. He'd hired a security firm to trace them, told her to ignore the rest. But you couldn't ignore hate when it showed up in your phone at 2 a.m. Maya got out of bed and went downstairs, seeking the kitchen, the only room in the house that felt even remotely normal. She made tea the way her mother had taught her, heating water in a pot because microwaved water was an insult to tea leaves. She was pouring when Marcus appeared in the doorway, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt. It was the most casual she'd ever seen him. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. "Another message." "Let me see." She handed him her phone, watched his jaw tighten as he read. "This one's worse than the others," he said quietly. "I'll call security in the morning." "Security can't fix this." Maya took her phone back. "People hate me, Marcus. Actual hate, and I don't even know them. They don't know you either. That's how the internet works. That doesn't make it hurt less." Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then, "Make me some tea, too?" Maya poured a second cup. They sat at the kitchen island, the informal space where the staff ate lunch, not the formal dining room where they usually had stilted breakfasts. "I got death threats when I sold my first company," Marcus said. "People who'd invested accused me of selling out, said I'd betrayed the mission. Some guy in Nevada threatened to kill me for destroying innovation. That's horrifying. It's visibility. Once enough people know who you are, some percentage will hate you. It's statistics." He sipped his tea. "This is good. My mother's recipe." "How is she?" "Better. The treatment's working." Maya wrapped her hands around her mug. "She asked me yesterday if I was happy." "What did you say?" "I didn't know what to say." They sat in comfortable silence, which was new. The first few weeks, silence between them had been awkward, contractual. Now it was almost companionable. "I have to go to San Francisco next week," Marcus said. "Board meeting, investor presentations, 3 days. Okay, you should come." Maya looked up, surprised. "Why?" "Because the house will be empty and weird without someone in it. Because you might like San Francisco. Because the tech press will be there and we should be seen together." He paused. "Pick your reason." "Is this required?" "No. The contract only specifies Boston area events, but it would be helpful." "Helpful," Maya repeated. The word that defined their entire relationship. Not wanted. "Helpful. There's also an opera while we're there. Don Giovanni. I thought you might want to see it." Something in Maya's chest tightened. "You're bribing me with opera?" "I'm suggesting shared interests might make 3 days in California more bearable." Marcus set down his mug. "But if you'd rather stay here, that's fine too." Maya thought about it. Thought about 3 days alone in this house. Thought about her mother, who was stable now, who told her to live a little, Baobei, even if it's all pretend. "I'll come," she said. "Good." Marcus stood. "Try to sleep. The hate messages are always worse at night. In the morning they just seem pathetic." He was right, they were pathetic, but they still hurt. They flew private, because of course they did. Maya had never been on a private jet before. She tried not to gawk at the cream leather seats, the actual bedroom in the back, the flight attendant who offered champagne like it was water. Marcus worked the entire flight, laptop open, barely looking up. Maya stared out the window and watched America slide by below. She'd never been west of Pennsylvania before. San Francisco was beautiful in the way of cities that have been gentrified into expensive irrelevance. Perfect weather, stunning views, homeless encampments tucked just out of sight of the tourist routes. The hotel was in Nob Hill. Their suite had 2 bedrooms and a living room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. "This is obscene," Maya said, looking at the view. "This is the Fairmont." Marcus was already on his phone, dealing with some crisis. "I have meetings all day tomorrow. Car will take you wherever you want to go." "I don't need a car." "Maya, you're my wife. You don't take Uber. You have a car and driver. Just accept it." She wanted to argue, but she was too tired. That night, they had dinner with Marcus's board members, 8 people who talked about valuation and market penetration and other things Maya couldn't follow. She smiled and nodded and felt like a decoration. Afterward, one of the board members, a woman named Priya Shah, who'd founded 2 successful startups, pulled Maya aside. "Surviving?" she asked quietly. "Barely." Priya laughed. "I remember my first tech dinner. I was the only woman in the room, and they talked over me for 2 hours straight." She sipped her wine. "You get better at it, or you get meaner. Either works." "How do you deal with it? Everyone judging you, assuming things." "I don't deal with it, I just stop caring." Priya studied Maya's face. "You're the one from the Mozart bet, right?" Maya nodded, bracing for judgment. "That took guts," Priya said. "Singing in front of those vultures, I would have frozen." "I almost did." "But you didn't. And now you're here, in a world that doesn't want you, that's trying to make you small." Priya's voice was fierce. "Don't let them. Stay loud." It was the kindest thing anyone had said to Maya in weeks. Don Giovanni was at the War Memorial Opera House, a grand building that reminded Maya of every venue she'd dreamed of performing in as a student. She wore a black gown. Marcus wore his standard expensive suit. They arrived with security. Actual security now, after the threats had escalated. Inside, the opera house was stunning. Gilded boxes, red velvet, chandeliers that looked like frozen fireworks. Their seats were in a private box. Of course. "Have you seen this opera before?" Marcus asked as they settled in. "Only in recordings, never live." Maya's voice was quiet, almost reverent. The lights dimmed, the orchestra began, and for the next 3 hours Maya forgot about everything else. She forgot about the contract and the hate messages and the performance of being Mrs. Hale. She forgot about her mother's illness and the money and the year she had to endure. She just listened. Mozart's music poured over her, that impossible combination of sophistication and emotional honesty. The singers were extraordinary. The staging was innovative but respectful. During the sextet in Act 2, Sola, Sola, in Buio Loco, Maya started crying and couldn't stop. Marcus handed her a handkerchief without comment. When it was over, when the applause finally faded and the lights came up, Maya sat very still. "Are you okay?" Marcus asked. "I forgot," she said quietly. "I forgot what it felt like to love something this much." They didn't speak on the ride back to the hotel. In the suite, Maya went to her room and stood by the window, looking out at San Francisco, glittering below. There was a knock on her door. "It's open," she called. Marcus came in, still in his tuxedo, but with the bow tie undone. He looked uncertain, which was new. "I've been thinking," he said. About what you said, about forgetting what you love." He pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, then showed her the screen. "Dr. Ashford connected me with his colleague at Boston Conservatory. She's one of the best vocal coaches in the country. I've arranged for you to study with her." Maya stared at the email on his screen. "Marcus, twice a week. Her studio's in Cambridge. The driver will take you." He paused. "You're paying for it with your stipend, not my money. I'm just making the introduction." "Why would you do this?" "Because you were right. This arrangement is easier if you don't feel like you're dying inside." He put his phone away. "And because watching you watch that opera tonight, I've never seen you look like that. Not at any gala, not at our wedding. You looked alive." The wedding. They'd gotten married 3 weeks in at City Hall, with 2 witnesses pulled from the clerk's office. It had taken 11 minutes. Marcus had treated it like a DMV appointment. "Thank you," Maya said. "Really." "Don't thank me yet. Professor Chen is apparently terrifying. Dr. Ashford called her the vocal drill sergeant of New England. Her name is Chen? No relation, I checked. Marcus headed for the door, then stopped. There's a practice room in the house, 3rd floor, back corner. I had it soundproofed last week. You had a room soundproofed for me? You need to practice somewhere. Might as well be at home. He shrugged like it was nothing, like it was just another business decision. But Maya heard what he wasn't saying. I'm trying. In my own limited way, I'm trying to make this bearable for you. After he left, Maya stood by the window for a long time, thinking about the strange intimacy of a business arrangement and whether it was possible to care about someone you didn't love. The article came out 2 days after they returned from San Francisco. Billionaire's Bride. The truth behind the fairy tale. An investigation into Maya Chen's past reveals questionable financial dealings and a history of targeting wealthy men. It was in the Boston Globe, written by someone named Richard Mathers. 40 paragraphs of carefully sourced lies and half-truths designed to destroy her. They claimed she dated a wealthy student at NEC, that the relationship had ended when his parents paid her off. They had quotes from anonymous sources saying she'd always been calculating, always looking for a way up. They'd found her old roommate from conservatory, someone Maya hadn't spoken to in 5 years, who said Maya always talked about marrying rich. This was her plan all along. It wasn't true. None of it was true. The wealthy student had been a brief relationship that ended badly, but not financially. The roommate had been jealous and cruel, someone Maya had actively avoided. But truth didn't matter. The article was written well enough that it seemed true. And once something seems true, it might as well be. The story went viral. By noon, it was on every gossip site. By evening, it was trending on Twitter. By midnight, Maya's phone had 247 messages, most of them hateful. She sat in the study, reading the article for the 15th time, trying to understand how her life had been twisted into something so ugly. Marcus was on his phone with his legal team, pacing, furious. "Sue them," he was saying. "I don't care what it costs. Sue the Globe, sue Mathers, sue anyone who republishes this garbage." "Marcus," Maya said quietly, "stop." He looked at her. "Stop," she repeated. "Suing them makes it a bigger story, gives it oxygen. They lied about you, I know, but fighting makes it worse." She set down her phone. I need to not exist for a while." "What does that mean?" "I need to go be alone, somewhere no one knows me, somewhere I can breathe." Marcus studied her face. Then he nodded slowly. "Take the car, go wherever you need to go. I'll handle the lawyers." "What about the event tomorrow? The Children's Hospital fundraiser?" "I'll make an excuse." Maya stood. She felt hollow, scooped out, like all the parts of her that mattered had been surgically removed and put on display for strangers to judge. She went to Dorchester, to the apartment she'd grown up in, that her mother still rented, even though she spent most nights at Dana-Farber now. The building looked shabbier than Maya remembered. Paint peeling, steps cracked, mailboxes dented. But it was real. It was honest. It was hers. She let herself in with the key she still carried. Inside, everything was exactly the same. The worn couch, the CD player that still worked, her mother's teapot on the stove. Maya made tea, sat on the couch, and finally let herself cry. She cried for the person she used to be, for the dreams she'd buried, for the privacy she'd sold, for the dignity she'd lost. She cried until she was empty. Then her phone rang. It was her mother. "I saw the article," Hui said without preamble. "Mom, I saw it, and I want you to know something." Her mother's voice was fierce. "I raised you better than to care what strangers think. Did you do the things they're accusing you of? No. Then hold your head up and let them talk. Small people always try to pull down anyone who rises above them. It hurts, Mom. Of course it hurts. Truth always costs something. They paused. But you know what hurts more? Giving up your own truth because other people tell lies. Maya closed her eyes. I don't know if I can do this for a whole year. Then don't. What? Don't do it for a year. Do it for today. Then tomorrow do it for that day. One day at a time, Baobei. That's how we survive impossible things. After they hung up, Maya sat in the quiet apartment and thought about survival, about endurance, about the difference between breaking and bending. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. The Globe is issuing a retraction. Mather's fabricated sources. They're firing him. It'll be in tomorrow's paper. Another text. I know this doesn't undo the damage, but it's something. A third. Come home when you're ready. I'll be here. Home. He'd called the Beacon Hill house home, like it was hers too. Maya looked around the Dorchester apartment one more time. Then she locked it up and called the driver. On the ride back, she made a decision. She wasn't going to survive this year by disappearing. She wasn't going to make it through by becoming smaller, quieter, more invisible. She'd survived by being invisible at the apex, but Mrs. Hale, whoever that person was, couldn't hide. So she'd do the opposite. She'd be loud. Professor Elizabeth Chen, no relation, as Marcus had confirmed, taught in a converted church in Cambridge. The space still had stained glass windows and vaulted ceilings, which meant perfect acoustics. She was 74, 4 feet 11 inches tall, and terrifying. You've been silent for 4 years, Professor Chen said during Maya's first lesson, after hearing her sing scales. Your voice knows this. It's protecting itself. We need to convince it to trust you again. How do I do that? You sing, every day, no matter how it sounds. The professor walked around Maya, listening. You have good technique buried under fear. We'll excavate it. For the next 2 months, Maya went to lessons twice a week. Professor Chen didn't care about Maya's personal life, about Marcus, about the articles or the scrutiny. She cared about breath support and vowel placement, and whether Maya was singing from her diaphragm or her throat. It was the most freeing 2 hours of Maya's week. You're getting louder, Professor Chen observed in week 6, not just vocally. You're taking up more space in the room. Maya had noticed it too. Something was shifting, some internal calibration. At events now, and there were still events, still performances of being Mrs. Hale, Maya spoke more, asked questions, offered opinions. When someone made a comment about the Waitress, Maya smiled and said, Yes, I worked service for 3 years. It taught me more about human nature than any degree could. When someone whispered gold digger loud enough for her to hear, Maya turned and said, Actually, I prefer opportunistic entrepreneur. Has a better ring to it. Marcus watched these transformations with something like fascination. You're different, he said one night, after a particularly contentious board dinner where Maya had challenged a donor about his company's labor practices. Is that a problem? No, Marcus said slowly. It's interesting. In month 4, Professor Chen made an announcement. There's a student showcase at Jordan Hall in 3 weeks, she said. I'm entering you. What? No, I'm not ready. You're as ready as you'll ever be, and you need to perform in front of people, real people, not society vultures. Professor Chen handed her sheet music. Puccini, O mio babino caro, simple, emotional, perfect for your voice. Professor, this is not a request, Maya. You're performing. Maya told Marcus that night over dinner. A public performance, he said carefully. That will draw attention. I know. The press will be there. People will have opinions. People always have opinions. Maya set down her fork. I'm doing it anyway. Marcus was quiet for a moment, then, I'd like to come, if that's okay. It was the first time he'd asked permission for anything. Okay, Maya said. The 3 weeks of preparation were intense. Maya practiced until her throat hurt, then practiced more. Professor Chen was merciless. Again, she'd say, with more feeling. You're singing about love, not taxes. Again. The crescendo comes too early. Make them wait for it. Again. Stop thinking. Just feel. The night before the performance, Maya couldn't sleep. She stood by the window in her room, looking out at Boston, and felt terror mixing with something else. Excitement, maybe, or recognition. This was what she'd trained for. This was who she used to be. There was a knock on her door. Marcus stood in the hallway, holding 2 mugs. "Chamomile," he said. "The internet says it helps with performance anxiety." Maya took the mug, surprised. "You Googled performance anxiety." "I Googled a lot of things." He leaned against the doorframe. "You're going to be great tomorrow. You don't know that. I heard you sing Mozart perfectly in a restaurant after not performing for 4 years. I think you can handle Puccini in a concert hall." That was different. That was anger and desperation. "And what is tomorrow?" Maya thought about it. "Choice, I guess. I'm choosing this." "Then you'll be fine." Marcus hesitated. "Can I tell you something?" "Okay." "When I watched that opera in San Francisco, I realized I'd never actually enjoyed art before. I'd consumed it, appreciated it intellectually, understood why it was valuable, but I'd never just felt it." He looked uncomfortable, like this was hard to admit. "You showed me that, how to feel something instead of just analyzing it." "Marcus, I'm not saying this to make you uncomfortable. I'm saying thank you." He straightened. "Get some sleep. I'll see you tomorrow." After he left, Maya sat on her bed, thinking about the strange alchemy of this arrangement. How 2 people who barely knew each other could somehow change each other anyway. The performance was at 7 p.m. Maya arrived 3 hours early to warm up, to panic, to remember how to breathe. Professor Chen was backstage, along with 3 other students performing that night. "Nervous?" the professor asked. "Terrified?" "Good. Terror means you care." Professor Chen adjusted Maya's dress. A simple black gown. Nothing like the elaborate costumes of the galas. "Remember, this is not about them. This is about you and Puccini having a conversation. Everyone else is just eavesdropping." The hall filled up. Maya peeked through the curtain and saw Marcus in the 3rd row, looking uncomfortable in a room full of actual music lovers instead of society people. She saw Dr. Ashford, saw a few of Professor Chen's other students, saw critics from the Globe and the Herald, probably hoping for a disaster they could write about. At 7:02, Maya walked onto the stage. The lights were bright. The piano was perfectly in tune. The audience was silent, waiting. She took her place, nodded to the accompanist, and began. "O mio babino caro, O my dear papa," Puccini's aria about a daughter begging her father to let her marry the man she loves. Simple melody, devastating emotion. Maya poured everything into it. All the fear and anger and confusion of the last 4 months. All the love for her mother. All the weird affection she was developing for the stranger she'd married. All the parts of herself she'd buried and was now excavating. Her voice filled the hall. Not perfect, not flawless, but honest, raw, human. When she finished, there was a beat of silence. Then the audience erupted. Real applause. Standing ovation. Dr. Ashford was crying again. Professor Chen was nodding with fierce satisfaction. And Marcus was staring at her like he'd never seen her before. Backstage, after the other students had performed and the showcase was over, Maya was surrounded by people. Critics wanting quotes, students wanting advice, Professor Chen's colleagues offering compliments. Maya navigated it all with the poise she'd learned from 4 months of society events, but without the falseness. This was her world. She belonged here. Marcus waited until the crowd cleared. "That was incredible," he said quietly. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for inviting me." He hesitated. "There's something I need to tell you." Maya's stomach dropped. What? Not here. Let's go home. In the car, Marcus was silent. At the house, he led her to the study and closed the door. What's going on? Maya asked, fear rising. Marcus sat down heavily. The year is half over. I know. The contract specifies 1 year minimum. After that, we can divorce, and you get your settlement. I know that too, Marcus. What are you— I want to renegotiate. Maya went still. Renegotiate? I want to extend it another year, maybe 2. He ran his hand through his hair. I'll increase the settlement proportionally. 10 million for 2 years, 15 for 3. Stop. Maya's voice was sharp. Just stop. Why would you want to extend this? Marcus looked at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked uncertain. Because I've gotten used to you, he said quietly. Because the house feels empty when you're not in it. Because I like our stupid late-night tea conversations. Because watching you find yourself again has been the most interesting thing I've experienced in years. That's not a reason to stay married. I know. That's why I'm offering more money. I don't want more money. Maya was on her feet now, pacing. That's not— You can't just buy more time with me because you're lonely. I'm not lonely. Marcus stopped. I don't know what I am. They stared at each other. Let me ask you something, Maya said. In 6 months, have you ever thought about me as anything other than a contractual obligation that turned out to be pleasant company? That's not fair. Answer the question. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Yes, he said finally. I've thought about you as more than that. As what? As someone I care about. As someone I don't want to lose. Maya felt something crack in her chest. You don't lose me in 6 months. The contract ends, we divorce, but we could still— What, be friends? Marcus laughed bitterly. I don't know how to be friends with someone I've been married to. Then learn. I don't learn things I'm not good at. That's the most entitled thing I've ever heard you say. Probably because it's true. Maya sat down, suddenly exhausted. Marcus, this arrangement has worked because it had a defined end, because we both knew it wasn't real. If you start changing the terms now, what if I want it to be real? The words hung in the air between them. You don't, Maya said quietly. You want the idea of it. You want the convenient companion and the interesting art student project. But you don't actually want me. How do you know what I want? Because you've never once asked what I want. Maya's voice cracked. In 6 months, you've never asked if I'm happy, if this is what I want, if I'm developing feelings that complicate everything. You've never asked because the answer might be inconvenient for your plans. Marcus went very still. Are you developing feelings? Maya wanted to lie, should lie, but she was so tired of performing. Yes, she said. I care about you. I shouldn't, but I do. I like our conversations. I like that you had a room soundproofed for me. I like watching you slowly learn how to be human. She laughed, but it came out broken. But that doesn't mean I want to extend the contract. It means I need it to end before this gets any more complicated. What if I don't want to divorce you? Then you break the contract and I get nothing. Maya met his eyes. Is that what you want? To trap me here? No. God, no. Marcus stood, agitated. I'm trying to say I don't want this to be a transaction anymore. Then what do you want it to be? I don't know. He was shouting now, the first time she'd heard him shout. I don't know what this is or what I'm feeling or how to navigate any of this. I'm a billionaire who bought a wife on a bet, and now I'm realizing I don't want her to leave, and I don't know how to ask her to stay without making it another transaction. The silence after his outburst was deafening. Maya stood slowly, walked to him, put her hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat racing. I'll stay, she said quietly, not for more money, not for a longer contract. I'll stay because I choose to. No transaction, no obligation, just Let's see what happens." "You'd do that?" "I'm terrified to do that, but yes." Marcus covered her hand with his. "If this falls apart, if we try this and it doesn't work, then we'll deal with it like adults, but I'm not going to live my life afraid of falling apart." Maya smiled slightly. "I already fell apart once. I survived. You did more than survive. You transformed. So did you." They stood there in the study, not quite lovers, not quite friends, not quite spouses, something entirely undefined and terrifying and real. "We should probably tell the lawyers," Marcus said eventually. "God, the lawyers are going to have a field day with this. They're paid enough to handle it." Maya started laughing. Marcus joined her, and for the first time since the bet, since the wedding, since the whole impossible arrangement began, they were laughing together at the absurdity of it all. Maya Chen Hale, she'd hyphenated because why not, stood backstage at Symphony Hall, preparing for her professional debut with the Boston Symphony Orchestra. The program, Mozart's Exultate, Jubilate. The piece that had always been her favorite, even before the bet, before Marcus, before everything. In the audience were her mother, cancer-free for 6 months and counting, Professor Chen looking stern and proud, Dr. Ashford who'd recommended her for this performance, Marcus's board members, society people who'd once looked through her like glass. And Marcus, sitting in the first row, exactly where he'd been for every performance, every lesson, every late-night practice session. They weren't perfect. They still fought. About money, about privacy, about Marcus's tendency to treat emotions like business problems. Maya still had moments of feeling like she didn't belong in his world. Marcus still had moments of forgetting that relationships required actual work. But they were trying, learning, growing. The contract had been formally dissolved 3 months ago. They'd gotten remarried the next week, this time at a small ceremony with actual people they cared about, actual vows they meant. The settlement money sat in an account Maya barely touched. She was performing now, teaching part-time at Boston Conservatory, living the life she'd thought she'd lost. The lights dimmed. The conductor raised his baton, and Maya walked onto the stage, not as a waitress, not as a transaction, not as someone playing a role, just as herself. The orchestra began. Maya took a breath and sang. "So let me get this straight," the journalist said, leaning forward. "He made a bet. You sang an aria. He proposed marriage. And now, years later, you're actually in love." Maya and Marcus sat on the couch in their Beacon Hill house. Not the formal living room, but the den, surrounded by stacks of sheet music and Marcus's laptops, and the comfortable chaos of actual life. "When you say it like that, it sounds absurd," Maya said, smiling. "It is absurd," Marcus agreed, "but it's also what happened." "Do you regret it?" the journalist asked. "Either of you." Maya and Marcus looked at each other. They'd learned a language of glances over the years, entire conversations in a look. "I regret how it started," Maya said. "The public spectacle, the scrutiny, the pain it caused. But I don't regret where we ended up." "I regret making a bet instead of just asking you out like a normal person," Marcus said. "Would have saved us a lot of grief." "Would you have asked me out if I'd heard you sing yes, absolutely?" The journalist smiled. "And what about you, Maya? If he'd approached you at the restaurant without the bet, I would have thought he was insane. A billionaire asking out a waitress. I would have assumed it was a joke or a prank or—" She stopped. "I needed the absurdity of the bet to believe it could be real. So in a strange way, the bet was necessary." They considered that. "Maybe," Maya said slowly. "Or maybe we're just good at making meaning out of chaos." After the interview crew left, Maya and Marcus sat in the quiet house. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd never made that bet?" Maya asked. "Every day." And I'm grateful I did, even though it was stupid and reckless and I had no idea what I was doing. Marcus pulled her closer. Best bad decision I ever made. Same, Maya said. Somewhere in the house, the soundproofed practice room waited. Tomorrow, Maya had rehearsal for La Bohème at Boston Lyric Opera. Next week, Marcus had a board meeting. In a month, they were flying to Shanghai to visit Maya's family. Their life wasn't a fairy tale. It was messy and complicated and still required work. But it was real, and it was theirs. And sometimes Maya thought that was better than any story.